Life in the Wild West was cruel and unforgiving. Dust storms covered the streets while hungry families struggled to survive another day. Women carried water beneath the burning sun, children stayed hidden indoors, and every man kept one hand near his gun. But fear ruled this territory more than the law ever could. One outlaw haunted every town, robbing trains, burning farms, and leaving death behind him wherever he rode. Sheriffs failed to stop him. Bounty hunters vanished without a trace. People believed the monster could never be captured alive. Then one silent morning, something unbelievable appeared from the dusty horizon. The town froze as a tired horse slowly walked through the empty street. Beside it stood a small woman wearing a worn cowboy hat covered in dirt and smoke. She looked exhausted from days without rest, yet her eyes carried no fear. People stepped outside their homes in confusion, trying to understand why the stranger had arrived alone. Then the chains dragging through the dirt caught everyone's attention. Gasps spread across the street. Behind the horse, bruised and defeated, was the territory's most wanted outlaw. The same criminal who terrified entire towns, now captured by a woman barely 5'2". Women stopped washing clothes. Cowboys walked out of the saloon in disbelief. Even the sheriff stood frozen beside the jailhouse door, unable to believe his eyes. Armed men had hunted this outlaw for years and never returned alive. Yet somehow this tiny woman had done the impossible. Whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. Some believed she must have tricked him. Others thought she was protected by luck itself. But when the outlaw slowly lifted his head, the fear in his eyes revealed the truth. For the first time in his life, the monster was afraid of someone else. No one knew where the woman came from. She never spoke about her past, and she never explained how she tracked the outlaw across deserts, mountains, and deadly canyons. Rumors spread quickly through the territory. Some said she survived a midnight gunfight alone against 5 armed men. Others claimed she crossed freezing rivers and rode for days without sleep just to finish the hunt. But the woman ignored every question. She simply tightened the ropes around the outlaw's wrists and walked him toward the sheriff's office as the silent town watched in awe. The outlaw's name had once filled people with terror. Parents warned children about him at night, and travelers avoided lonely roads because of his gang. He stole gold, destroyed homes, and killed anyone brave enough to resist him. Entire towns paid money just to avoid his wrath. Yet now, covered in dust and chains, he looked powerless beside the fearless woman who captured him. The same people who once hid inside their homes slowly stepped closer, staring at the unbelievable sight standing before them in the middle of the street. The sheriff finally gathered enough courage to step forward. His hands trembled as he looked at the captured outlaw. Reward posters with the criminal's face had hung on the jailhouse walls for years, but nobody truly believed justice would ever arrive. The woman calmly tossed the rope into the sheriff's hands without saying a word. Silence covered the town. Even the wind seemed to stop moving. In that moment, everyone realized they were witnessing history. The most feared man in the territory had finally been brought down, not by an army, but by one determined woman. As the outlaw was dragged toward the jail cell, angry townspeople gathered behind him. Families who had lost loved ones stared with tears in their eyes. Old men removed their hats in respect for the woman. Mothers held their children close, finally feeling safe for the first time in years. But while the town celebrated, the mysterious woman remained calm and distant. There was no smile on her face, no pride in her eyes. She looked at the outlaw not with hatred, but with the cold determination of someone who had unfinished business. People crowded around the sheriff's office, desperate to hear her story. They wanted to know how someone so small defeated the deadliest outlaw in the West. But the woman stayed silent. Her boots were torn from weeks of travel, and fresh scars covered her hands from brutal fights along the journey. She looked less like a hero, and more like someone who had survived hell itself. The outlaw avoided looking at her completely. The fearless criminal who once laughed in the face of death now sat quietly in chains beside the jail wall. Late that evening, whispers filled the saloon as cowboys argued over the woman's identity. Some believed she had military training. Others thought she was once part of the outlaw's gang before betraying him. But nobody truly knew the truth. The woman sat alone outside the sheriff's office beneath the dim lantern light, watching the jail cell carefully. She trusted no one. Inside the jail, the outlaw finally spoke for the first time since arriving in town. His bruised voice echoed through the cold cell as he asked the woman one simple question: "Why didn't you kill me?" The town listened carefully from outside the bars, expecting anger or revenge. But the woman answered calmly. She said some monsters deserved something worse than death. They deserved to face justice and live with the fear they once gave others. For the first time, the outlaw lowered his head in silence, unable to respond. By sunrise, news of the capture spread across the territory faster than wildfire. Travelers carried the story from town to town, speaking about the fearless 5'2" woman who accomplished the impossible. People who once lived in fear finally felt hope returning to the West. Children laughed in the streets again. Farmers reopened abandoned lands. Even the sheriff admitted that without her courage, the outlaw would have continued terrorizing innocent families forever. But despite becoming a legend overnight, the mysterious woman still refused to reveal her name. The sheriff offered her the massive reward money promised for the outlaw's capture. Gold coins filled heavy bags across the wooden desk inside the office. Any other bounty hunter would have celebrated such fortune. But the woman barely looked at the money. She quietly accepted only enough supplies for her horse and prepared to leave town before sunset. The sheriff stared in confusion. He asked why she would walk away from so much wealth after risking her life. The woman simply replied, "I didn't come here for gold." As she prepared to ride away, one elderly woman from the town stepped forward through the crowd. Tears filled her eyes as she thanked the mysterious hunter for saving their families from years of terror. Slowly, others joined her. Men removed their hats respectfully while children watched with admiration. The fearless stranger who arrived covered in dust had become a symbol of courage for the entire territory. Yet despite the praise surrounding her, she never looked comfortable being called a hero. Her eyes still carried the pain of old memories. Before leaving town, the woman stopped one final time outside the jail cell. The outlaw stared at her silently from behind the iron bars. He looked broken now, no longer the fearless monster people once feared. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then the woman quietly revealed the truth. Years ago, the outlaw's gang destroyed her family and burned her home to the ground. Every dangerous mile of the hunt had been driven by one thing alone: justice. The outlaw finally understood why she never feared him. As the sun disappeared beyond the desert hills, the mysterious woman rode away from the town she had changed forever. Dust rose behind her horse while the people watched silently from the street. No celebration could fully describe what they had witnessed. One fearless woman had succeeded where armies and lawmen had failed. Her story spread across the Wild West for generations, becoming a legend whispered beside campfires for years to come. And from that day forward, whenever fear returned to the territory, people remembered the tiny woman who brought down a monster.